Yusuf Enriquez, founder and CEO of Indigenous AI. Got into the genomic space for two casualties of tragedies in my life. My daughter's at 14 was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, which is a rare incurable disease. So that got me interested in looking at gene and cell therapy as a potential solving their eye degeneration where they may be going blind by the age of 40. In 2020, MIT asked me to do a hackathon around racism in healthcare, and lack of diversity was one of the clinical trial areas that I focused on because we were struggling with finding studies that include African-American and African-American women. And so Indigenous was created when we started seeing a lot of the health disparities that were ripping through the community, underlined with COVID conditions that were dying 4 times the rates of our white counterparts. So the problem is legacy data. As you know, European, 95% of the trials are done within 95% European white males. It might have dropped a little bit since I left the FDA, where I spent a lot of time doing drug approvals. But here's the traditional problem where there's not a lot of representation of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in these trials. And so Indigenous is trying to address 2 things: better efficacy around drugs, but also increasing clinical trials participant within the BIPOC community. On the drug development side, it's complex, slow, but again, I think that contradicts with how the vaccine was developed quite quickly. And Indigenous has figured out ways on how to create automation and innovation within the drug process pipeline to cut down on some of that $2.6 billion that are normally quoted for drug development. And that solution is really around our Genius Discovery platform, which is the first blockchain-encrypted repository that's going to aggregate clinical and genomic data from diverse population in order to detect novel signatures, look at polygenic risk scores, and multi-omics data, including your clinical and genomic data in one data repository. Our technology overview is quite complex. However, we see the value in creating this platform by including that electronic health record, with the Cures Act being mandating that you could grab your medical records from different ethnic concern or health system. We are creating this where we're going to put the power into the patient's hand, where you could go request your medical information from all these different places and houses on our platform. And then we'll do your genomic sequence that will then provide insights around genetics, ancestry, pharmacogenomics with a low-hanging fruit, what you metabolize better. And then we can look at clinical research and commercial research over time. The biggest thing within the Black and Indigenous population is around data security and trust and safety around that data. And so in October of last year, we acquired encryption to boost our blockchain-enabled security, where we're now able to create a federated analytics architecture within our platform, but also be able to show the transparency of where your information and your data has been shared with. And so that's where the blockchain has been very important with that genomic data marketplace that was already in production and in use, but it was at a low scale of bringing your 23andMe ancestry information. We're now on the right side going to increase this to whole genome sequencing as a service, where we're going to provide those 8,000 members that were already part of the digital platform on encryption. We're going to create that model and then also provide data queries. So pharma will never be able to sold the physical data. And then the monetary aspect, we're going to create that blockchain where individuals' data that gets queried and we make money from will then be paid to the patient that provided that data over the time, their lifetime. So every time their data is queried for a genomic research project, that individual gets paid. On the other side, we're building out our service-disabled veteran government contracting piece, and we'll be able to do servicing of contracts with the Million Veteran Program and other genomic research, whole genome sequencing project like All of Us. Currently, right now, we've aggregated over 600,000 samples. About 500,000 is with Orem Institute, which is in South Africa. We're going to look at HIV, TB, and AIDS. Kenya AIDS Vaccine Institute has promised and committed 18,000 samples. The University of Nairobi, we have some breast cancer as well, and then 50,000 patients. We've noticed that there's a huge need within the endometriosis, fibroid, and polycystic ovary syndrome. And we'll be doing that at our brand new J Labs that's in Washington, D.C., where we have our genomics lab. On the front piece, we'll do our community engagement through an app engagement platform that we're developing to house the communities, especially with my daughters. We're creating a community for retinitis pigmentosa kids and adults so that we can create those environments and do clinical research. Have an effective team and well-established team. All the members here are Howard University alumni, except for Elizabeth Waller, who's in our Kenya Federation Healthcare. That's helping us build a relationship there. And we also have our investors, Alani, who invested $1.5 million in our South Africa lab, which will be stood up next month, the end of August. Heading back over to South Africa to build that out, to start sequencing the 500,000 samples we have there. Market, this is pretty much focused around the Afro-Latin, Afrocentric populations, the African-American and the African diaspora. Market opportunities there might have increased now since we have genomic surveillance and also whole genome sequencing as a service. These areas might have already doubled or quadrupled. And then biologics, cell and gene therapy is also a big area. So here's a little bit of summary of the GeneUS discovery platform that we're going to create. We're going to do an end-to-end where we're collecting the samples, sequencing, driving the drug discovery, moving into large-scale GMP bioprocessing, and then regulatory approval. And the outcome is to help improve health outcomes, cheaper medication, and faster drugs. Traction to date, a little busy here, but just look to the right. J Labs, establishing our labs to do the sequencing is the most important thing on this slide, and our Orem partnership, which is going to scale up to 2 million samples by the end of this year. Here's our strategic partnership that we partnered with. Phyto-Riker is a Ghana pharmaceutical company that we're partnered with in talks of doing a state-of-the-art cell and gene therapy facility. Business model is pretty simple, follows the 23andMe, but actually you'll get some insight and better look at what you're predisposed to. So we have a revenue model that's pretty much a replica of what 23andMe did, but at a whole genome sequencing level. And then we've also carved out gross profit of what we could do throughout the clinical trial process life cycle as far as profit, and cutting down some of the fat, if you want to call it, through the drug regulatory process and automating some of those positions. Currently $18 million pre-money value. We've raised about $2 million, 1.5 committed by a South Africa investor. 175,000 was raised by Johnson & Johnson. In our pitch competition, our veteran-led pitch competition, we raised about 80,000 from angel investors. And we're looking to close out this pre-seed round end of this month, early next month. Thank you.